We're live from New Delhi. You're watching the India NewsHour, India's voice to the world. I'm Lipakshi Khurana. Coming up in the next hour. Sri Lanka's President Dissanayake, to begin his first overseas three-day India visit starting today, will meet his Indian counterpart and Prime Minister Narendra Modi. US and Arab leaders call for a stable transition in Syria, urge respect for minorities after Assad. In France, at least 14 killed as Cyclone Chido devastates Mayotte, also hits Mozambique. And US President-elect Donald Trump picks Richard Grenell, his former intelligence chief, as presidential envoy for special sessions. And on to the top story this hour. Sri Lanka's President Anurakkumara Dissanayake will begin his India tour today, marking his first overseas visit after assuming office. President Dissanayake will be accompanied by Sri Lanka's Foreign Minister Vijitha Herath and Deputy Minister of Finance Dr. Harshana Surya Pebanuma. During the three-day visit, President Dissanayake will meet his Indian counterpart Draupadi Murmu and hold talks with Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Monday, while External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar will call on the visiting dignitary on Sunday evening. And in India's Amritpal Singh joins us live for more on this. Well, Amrit, this is Sri Lankan President's first overseas visit after he took office. How would you describe the priorities of either side for the visit?
That's right, Lipakshi. This is the first visit of Anurakkumara Dissanayake after he became the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, the President of Sri Lanka after, in September this year, though he had visited India in February last year as the leader of his own party. This is a very important visit because this is his first overseas visit. It is being looked at very closely that when a Sri Lankan president visits either New Delhi or Beijing. So in that context, it is a very, very important visit, though it's a bilateral visit in that nature, from trade to bilateral ties, to maritime security, to the issue of fishermen, to Indian investments, to reviewing, sharing the IMF bailout package that Sri Lanka has signed with the IMF. All that would be under discussion, and building of infrastructure in that country, and India's line of credits and loans given to Sri Lanka, our various cooperation in terms of maritime security, and also helping the defense forces would be reviewed. And, the political relationship would also be reviewed when he meets Prime Minister Modi tomorrow at the Hyderabad House in Delhi. Lipakshi.
Right, Amrit. Also, considering the history of Dissanayake's party and stances on very specific issues, how do you think both sides will navigate their ties from this visit onwards?
Now, that's a good question. He comes from a party called the JVP, which is a part of the NPP alliance. They won 2/3 majority in the parliament. He, of course, won as president in September, later in November. Now, they are a strong political force. Traditionally, the JVP's stance has been anti-India. But remember, when External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar had visited Sri Lanka in October, Dissanayake had very clearly said that he will not allow the Sri Lankan soil to be used for interests that are inimical to Indian security interests. So clearly, there is a change of stance. He needs the money. He understands that India is an important partner of Sri Lanka. India is its closest maritime neighbor, is an economic hub, given his country's finances and also strategic interests. He needs India. Of course, he'll be visiting China later. He has a relationship with Beijing. They are the biggest contributors in terms of lenders to Sri Lanka. But, after China and Japan, India is the third biggest lender and the closest maritime neighbor. So India, in the time of crisis, will be their first responder. So Mr. Dissanayake understands that very well. Of course, these issues will come up for discussion, provincial autonomy, etc. Or the power project of Gautam Adani, which he was opposed to during his campaign for presidency. So clearly, there are contentious issues, but there are similarities also. So I think the focus would be to build on the convergences and see how the divergences can be narrowed. Vipakshi?
Definitely, Sri Lanka needs India. But Amrit, as you said a little while back, issues relating to maritime security cooperation are also likely to figure in talks during this Dissanyake's visit. What can be expected out there?
Well, India has a robust defense relationship with them, especially in the maritime area. They are the nearest or the closest neighbor of India in the Indian Ocean region. So from the Indian point of view, they play a very central role in the Sagar vision of the Prime Minister. They are important. You have cultural, historical ties with them. You have, the Tamils living there in the north and the eastern provinces of Sri Lanka, in majority and in minority in other parts of Sri Lanka as well. So you have, ties, very close ties with them. Therefore, the cooperation in maritime sphere to see that this area remains a free, open, inclusive area, and interests which are inimical to Indian interests. Say the docking of the Chinese satellite tracker ships, etc. At the Sri Lankan ports remains a matter of concern. So both the countries would want to see that those differences are smoothened and their security interests coincide. India has been providing indigenously built offshore patrolling vehicles to the Sri Lankan Navy. So cooperation in that. Then the fishermen issue, that how the two sides can come closer in the maritime domain and see that each other's fishermen are not arrested by the other party. So these would be the focus of the ties of the talks tomorrow. Vipakshi.
Right, Amrit. Also, Sri Lankan President is scheduled to attend a business event in Delhi to promote investment and commercial linkages between both the countries. What's any information on that?
Yes, he's leading. Of course, his deputy economy minister is there. So he's essentially, because they need investments at this moment, they need to badly get their economy back on track. India's growing business sector, India's production capabilities do help Sri Lanka. So he'll be looking at exploring these linkages in that meeting with the top business leaders or the honchos of India, where they'll be looking at how they can cooperate and look at more investments from Indian private sector into Sri Lanka for a mutually beneficial relationship. From his point of view, more money, more investment flowing in. One, to create infrastructure there. Second, to create jobs in Sri Lanka. Vipakshi.
Also, Amrit, he's scheduled to visit Bodh Gaya. What connect do you see there?
Oh, there is a Buddhist connect, as we know, between Sri Lanka and India for a very, very long time. When it's steeped in history, Buddhism traveled to Sri Lanka from India. So Bodh Gaya being the so-called Makkah of the Buddhists.
Right.
He himself, being a Buddhist, would want to pay obeisance at Bodh Gaya. So he's visiting Bodh Gaya. That forms a very, very important linkage in terms of cultural ties between the two countries.
Right, Amrit. Thank you so much for all those details. And moving on, Moldova's Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Affairs Minister Mihaly Popsoy arrived on his first official visit to India, marking a significant step in strengthening ties between the two countries. Welcoming Moldovan Deputy PM, India's External Affairs Ministry in a social media post said that his visit will deepen India-Moldova bilateral ties and foster a stronger partnership. During his visit, Deputy Prime Minister Popsoy will meet India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Shankar. On Monday, Popsoy will participate in a wreath-laying ceremony at Rajghat. Popsoy's visit follows the second India-Moldova Foreign Office's consultation held in New Delhi in October. And shifting focus to West Asia, Jordan is hosting a meeting of foreign ministers to discuss support for Syria after the fall of Bashar Assad, while Turkey will reopen its embassy in the country after a 12-year closure. Russia is pulling back its military from the front lines in northern Syria.
After Bashar al-Assad stepped down, America and Arab leaders are pushing for stable Syrian transition. Jordan's King Abdullah II met the top diplomats from 8 Arab countries in the Jordanian Red Sea port of Aqaba to discuss a peaceful transition in Syria, which was backed by the UN and the Arab League, following which the United States and regional diplomats have urged the new Syrian rulers to restore order for minorities in the country. At the conclusion of the meeting, Arab, Turkish and European diplomats have agreed that formation of a new government in Syria must be inclusive and should respect minority rights.
What matters is inclusivity in implementing the resolution, no exclusion or marginalization, so that all Syrians feel that this historical moment for all of them.
Stability in the region is very important because our neighbors' problems today are our problems tomorrow. And therefore, I'm very glad that we had this meeting together with the international actors as well as the regional actors.
US Secretary of State Antony Blinken, after the meeting, said the transition process should be Syrian-led, Syrian-owned and produce an inclusive and representative government.
We agreed that the transition process should be Syrian-led and Syrian-owned and produce an inclusive and representative government. The rights of all Syrians, including minorities and women, should be respected. Humanitarian aid should be able to reach people who need it. State institutions should deliver essential services to the Syrian people. Syria should not be used as a base for terrorist groups or others who threaten Syria's people, its neighbors, or the world.
The United States has also made direct contact with Syrian rebel group HTS, which led the offensive that toppled the Assad regime. It is the first acknowledgement of direct American contact with Hayat Tahrir al-Sham.
Yes, we've been in contact with HTS and with other parties. We have impressed upon everyone we've been in contact with the importance of helping find Austin Tice and bringing him home.
Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz has ordered the military to prepare to remain throughout the winter in the zone and summit of Mount Hermon. Israel Army Chief Herzi Halevi has visited troops operating in the UN-patrolled buffer zone that separates the Golan Heights from Syria. Meanwhile, Russia is pulling back its military from the front lines in northern Syria, but is not leaving its 2 main bases in the country after the fall of President Assad. Bureau Report, DD India.
And as tensions escalate in Syria, the Indian government has successfully evacuated 77 Indian nationals, several of whom returned to their homeland on Saturday. The individuals were deeply emotional and expressed their gratitude for the assistance provided. They extended heartfelt thanks to the Government of India and Prime Minister Narendra Modi for ensuring their safe return. DD India, Siddharth Bharadwaj reports for more.
Amid the ongoing crisis in Syria, a heartfelt homecoming unfolds here at the IGI airport in New Delhi. The Government of India has successfully evacuated 77 Indian nationals who are now returning to the safety of their homeland. As they step off the plane, it's a moment of relief and reunion as families await their loved ones. A sense of relief and joy is clearly visible on their faces, as after days of turmoil in Syria, they are finally returning home safely. Right now, they say, it's the best thing happening to them, and that without Indian government's assistance, nothing would have been possible. They also thanked Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
Because of our Indian embassy in Damascus, we were shifted to Lebanon very smoothly. हमें कोई भी दिक्कत नहीं हुई. And finally, हम लेबनान में गए. Same हमारे साथ वैसे ही सब रहा, सब बहुत अच्छे से हुआ, बहुत स्मूथली हो गया. हमें पता ही नहीं चला, जैसे घर में चीजें होती है, बड़ा होता है, सबका ख्याल रखता है. बिल्कुल सेम कंडीशन थी.
ये सब जो हुआ है आज हम यहाँ पे सेव खड़े हैं, वापस खड़े, तो ये मोदी जी की वजह से ही है. मोदी जी की जो डायरेक्शन में जो भी हुआ है, मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ एक्सटर्नल अफेयर ने जो भी किया, एग्जीक्यूट किया है, और इंडियन एम्बेसी जो दमस्कस में थी और लेबनान में है जो है, इतना अच्छे से कोऑपरेट करके उन्होंने इतना अच्छे से एग्जीक्यूशन किया ना, नो डाउटली परफेक्ट.
The government of India successfully evacuated 77 Indian nationals stranded in Syria amid escalating violence. This action comes as part of India's ongoing efforts to protect its citizens caught in the violence of the region.
लेबनान एम्बेसी और सीरिया एम्बेसी ने सर हमको बहुत अच्छा कोऑपरेट किया, किसी तरह का कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं हुआ और मोदी जी ने भी जो है हमारे उस बहुत सहयोग किया जी, है ना, तो हम मोदी जी से बहुत खुश हैं सर जी जो ना.
So far, 13 Indian nationals have arrived and more are expected in the coming days.
In view of the deteriorating security situation in Syria, Government of India has safely evacuated 77 Indians from the conflict zone. The process of evacuation is likely to continue till the first week of January next year.
The evacuation operation was carried out with the coordination of Indian embassies in Syria and Lebanon as the government continues to monitor the situation closely. The government of India continues its efforts to ensure safe return of citizens as the evacuation operation moves forward. With camera person Anand Kashyap, this is Siddharth Bhardwaj reporting for DD India in New Delhi.
And still to come on DD India NewsHour. South Korean prosecutors summon Yoon in martial law probe, stays absent for questioning. Australian Prime Minister thanks Indonesian President for repatriating Bali 9 drug smuggling ring members.
Nature could easily survive without us. We, however, couldn't really survive without it. But with these environmental problems, how do we make sure to secure our future? Let's find out.
So you just have to bring the sand from one place where it's not needed to the other place where it's needed. So that's called sand bypassing, sand nourishment. So that's the heart of the project.
Remediating the wetland will mean that the life of the wetland comes back to it. And if that happens, there will be money in every household inside that depends on the river.
It doesn't matter whether a farmer is educated, uneducated, skilled or not. This is a user-friendly app. A single touch is all it takes to operate and control the system. Anyone can use the app.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lepakshi Khurana, and moving on. Thousands of Israelis took to the streets for a deal to release the remaining hostages still held in Gaza after more than 14 months of conflict with Hamas in the Palestinian territory. There has been guarded optimism in recent days that a ceasefire and hostage release deal for Gaza might finally be within reach after months of abortive mediation efforts. And in the latest from the Russia-Ukraine conflict, Russian forces took control of 2 villages in the Donetsk region. They also claim to have destroyed 4 Patriot air defense systems. This comes after Russia said that it drowned 15 Ukrainian drones overnight, mostly in the Black Sea region. Meanwhile, Ukrainian air defenses said it destroyed 56 of 108 drones launched by Russia during its latest overnight strike. This comes as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky claimed that Russia began deploying North Korean soldiers to storm Ukrainian positions in the Kursk region.
I have preliminary evidence that the Russians have begun to use soldiers from North Korea in assaults, a noticeable number of them. I am referring to operations in the Kursk region, where Ukraine has been mounting an incursion since August.
While shifting focus to America, U.S. President-elect Donald Trump has announced Richard Grenell as his former intelligence chief will serve as presidential envoy for special missions. Grenell is expected to spearhead policies targeting U.S. adversaries, including North Korea. A source from Trump's transition team said Grenell's role will also involve addressing tensions in the Balkans. Grenell previously held key positions under Trump, including U.S. Ambassador to Germany, Special Envoy for Serbia and Kosovo peace talks, and Acting Director of National Intelligence during Trump's presidency from 2017 to 2021. Having actively campaigned for Trump ahead of the November 5th election, Grenell was initially a leading candidate for Secretary of State, a position ultimately given to U.S. Senator Marco Rubio. He was also considered for the role of Special Envoy for the Ukraine conflict, which was assigned to retired Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg. And Donald Trump also named his social media platform CEO Devin Nunes as the head of the President's Intelligence Advisory Board, an independent group within the advisory office which provides the President with independent advice on the effectiveness of the intelligence community. Nunes is a longtime Trump defender who led the U.S. House of Representatives Intelligence Committee during part of Trump's first White House term. The President's Intelligence Advisory Board is a White House panel that offers the President independent assessments of intelligence agencies' effectiveness and planning, though he will remain Truth Social CEO while serving on the advisory panel. Meanwhile, ABC News has agreed to give $15 million to Donald Trump's presidential library to settle a lawsuit over comments that anchor George Stephanopoulos made on air involving the civil case brought against Trump by writer E. John Carroll. The lawsuit, filed on March 19th in the U.S. District Court in southern Florida, accused Stephanopoulos of making the statements with malice and a disregard for the truth. It said the statements were distributed widely to third parties and repeated. The lawsuit cites a March 10th interview with U.S. Representative Nancy Mace, a Republican who's spoken publicly about being raped as a teenager. According to the settlement, ABC News must publish by Sunday a statement at the bottom of a March 10th online article that accompanied the interview. And leaders from Latin American and Caribbean nations met in Caracas during the Bolivarian Alliance for the Peoples of America ALBA summit on Saturday. ALBA was founded in 2004 under the leadership of former Cuban President Fidel Castro and late Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez, as a platform for integration in Latin America and the Caribbean with an emphasis on cooperation. The event, hosted by Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, was attended by heads of state from regional countries such as Cuba's Miguel Diaz-Canel, Bolivia's Luis Arce, and Nicaragua's Daniel Ortega. Diaz-Canel criticized the impact of the U.S. blockade on Cuba's economy and on the mental health of its citizens.
Since 2019, the US blockade against Cuba has escalated to an extreme dimension, much more cruel and inhuman, which is not only expressed in very high costs in materials and financial resources, but also burdens to unsustainable limits the daily life of our nation. The continuation of this policy over time has an unmeasurable psychological cost.
And Germany's Social Democrats plan to introduce a Made in Germany premium in the next government to boost investment in Europe's largest economy. The party's election manifesto showed on Sunday ahead of a likely early election next year. According to the document seen by a news agency, the plan includes a direct tax refund of 10% on equipment investments by businesses. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, an SPD member, sent a request to Parliament last week to hold a vote of confidence on Monday, setting a path to an early federal election next year after the collapse of his coalition. The SPD currently polls at 17%, and INSA poll showed on Saturday, trailing the conservative CDU and far-right AfD at 31% and 20% respectively. The SPD, which governs Germany in a minority government with the Greens, said in its manifesto, it paves to incentivize purchases of German-made electric cars with a temporary tax deduction offered to buyers. An Argentine President, Javier Milei, called on Saturday for a united front of right-wing leaders to confront what he described as the outrages of socialism. He urged conservatives worldwide to seize the moment and challenge leftist dominance in politics and culture. Milei was on a working visit in Rome to meet Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni and to take part in her Brothers of Italy party's annual festival at Reggio. Calling for strategic action, Milei urged conservatives to adopt their opponents' tactics and push back with determination.
I want to tell you that we are facing a change in times. The system of privileged groups is collapsing. The sickness of the woke soul is facing resistance from a society who is searching new representatives, new leaders to show the way. We must take responsibility of this reality and live up to this historical moment. During CPAC, Conservative Political Action Conference in Buenos Aires, I called this an emerging international right wing.
Ante los atropellos del socialismo.
Well, in Georgia, the ruling party installed far-right Mikhail Kavalashvili as president amid a constitutional crisis and pro-EU protest. The opposition boycotting the election condemned the process as illegitimate, backing Salom Zurabishvili as the rightful leader. Ongoing protests have led to arrest and international criticism is mounting. Saeed Absarul Hassan reports for more.
Georgia's ruling party installed far-right loyalist Mikhail Kavalashvili as president on Saturday amid a deepening constitutional crisis and weeks of mass pro-EU protests. Kavalashvili was elected by an electoral college controlled by the ruling Georgian Dream Party with 224 votes in a controversial election process boycotted by the opposition. The opposition has condemned the election as illegitimate, affirming that the sitting president Solomon Zurabishvili remains the country's only legitimate leader. Protesters gathered outside Georgia's parliament building on Saturday morning, which was cordoned off by police ahead of an evening rally.
I think that this election in October were rigged, so any actions that will be taken after these rigged elections cannot be legal. So we don't even think about the outcome of these fake elections that they have tomorrow, because it doesn't matter, it doesn't make any sense. There is only one party in the parliament who is making this decision. There will be no opposition, so there is no Georgian people's voice participating in this election.
Georgia has been in turmoil since the ruling Georgian Dream Party claimed victory in contested October parliamentary elections. Tensions flared further last month when the party delayed European Union membership talks, sparking fresh waves of mass rallies. Police have used tear gas, water cannons and arrested over 400 demonstrators during ongoing protests. Amnesty International condemned the government's use of brutal tactics, including arbitrary detention and torture. As international criticism grew, French President Macron expressed a strong support for Georgia's European aspirations, and the US imposed sanctions on Georgian officials accused of undermining democracy. Saeed Absarul Hassan reporting for TT India.
And now let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. Pakistan signed a $330 million loan agreement with the Asian Development Bank to enhance social protection programs focusing on education, healthcare and poverty reduction. Meanwhile, the World Bank cancelled over $500 million in budget support loans, citing unmet conditions, including power purchase agreement, revisions under the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. Pope Francis is set to visit Corsica, marking his first trip to the French Mediterranean island. During his short stay, he is scheduled to attend a conference on popular religiosity in the region and meet Cardinal Francois Xavier Bastillo. Prince William joined actor Hannah Waddingham at London's Alexandra Palace to discuss the Earthshot Prize, his environmental award launched in 2020. The pair played darts and shared a pint while talking about the prize, which funds innovative solutions to environmental challenges. A unique Christmas market in Recklinghausen, Germany has been set up in a former mine, offering visitors a festive experience with a mining twist. Visitors appreciated the serene atmosphere, while organizers expressed delight at the overwhelming response. And still to come in India NewsHour. India's Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar inaugurates Geoscience Museum in Gwalior, unveils statue of Srimant Jivaji Rao Scindia. India's Home Minister Amit Shah honors Chhattisgarh Police with President's colour. And today is the death anniversary of Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, the Iron Man of India.
we begin our journey exploring the factories where cricket gear is made, uncovering the process that has made Mayotte famous worldwide.
Mayotte was one area which was allocated for sports industry.
They have done very well, they are making a cricket bat, cricket ball, or pads, leather goods.
All around the world, they get their bats made in India. So you can imagine the kind of work they put in, and it's not an easy job.
There is a lot of hard work, a lot of craftsmanship, a lot of precision that goes inside the product.
Welcome to Jaipur.
Welcome back. You're watching India NewsHour. I'm Lipakshi Kuran, and time now for a quick recap of the headlines. Sri Lanka's President to begin his first overseas three-day visit India. Starting today, will meet his Indian counterpart and Prime Minister Narendra Modi. US and Arab leaders call for a stable transition in Syria, urge respect for minorities after Assad. In France, at least 14 killed as Cyclone Chido devastates Mayotte, also hits Mozambique. And US President-elect Donald Trump picks Richard Grenell, his former intelligence chief, as presidential envoy for special missions. And moving on, France's territory of Mayotte has been hit by the worst cyclone to hit the islands in nearly a century. At least 14 people have been killed in Mayotte when the fierce cyclone battered the French Indian Ocean territory on Sunday, with officials warning it will take days to know the full toll. Rescue workers and supplies are being rushed in by air and sea, but their efforts are likely to be hindered by damage to airports and electricity distribution in a territory where even clean drinking water was already subject to chronic shortages. Cyclone Chido made landfall on Saturday, causing wind gusts of more than 225 kilometers per hour. French government had sent 110 officers from the civil, security and military wings and firefighters to tackle the situation. French Prime Minister Francois Bayrou also chaired an emergency cabinet meeting.
It is a truly unusual situation. There had not been such a climate event in Mayotte since 1934, and as rainwater ran downhill and the land became unstable, it obviously was a disaster. All makeshift homes have been completely destroyed. So this climate event was absolutely tragic. The state, the agencies, the ministers are mobilizing.
Une catastrophe et l'entièreté.
Meanwhile, Cyclone Chido also struck Mozambique early on Sunday, intensifying as it crossed the Mozambique Channel before making landfall about 40 kilometers south of Pemba. The storm is forecast to bring thunderstorms, strong winds with gusts up to 60 km per hour and over 250 millimeters of rain in 24 hours, affecting the Cabo Delgado and Nampula provinces. And San Francisco residents were woken up by a tornado warning early Saturday morning during a powerful storm system that battered the region with heavy rain and wind. It was the first ever tornado warning for San Francisco, but not the first tornado. The National Weather Service issued the alert for northern San Mateo County and parts of downtown San Francisco after radar detected a cyclonic rotation strong enough to trigger the warning. Although tornadoes are uncommon in the area, the conditions were severe enough to warrant heightened caution. And rescue teams in Chumphon province, Thailand are working with all their might to assist flood victims as heavy rainfall continues to wreak havoc in the region. Authorities have urged residents in flood-prone areas to remain vigilant as water levels show no immediate signs of receding. Relief teams have put evacuations and the delivery of essential supplies to affected communities on a war footing. Thailand Met Office has forecast continued rainfall in the region, heightening concerns of further flooding. As rescue efforts continue, the government has pledged to mobilize resources to mitigate the disaster's impact on local residents and infrastructure. An impeached South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol did not appear for questioning on Sunday after being summoned by prosecutors over his brief imposition of martial law. This comes a day after lawmakers voted to impeach Yoon, accusing him of undermining civilian rule. He's been suspended from office, with Prime Minister Han Duck-soo serving as interim leader. The court has 180 days to make its decision on Yoon's impeachment, but opposition leaders are urging a swift ruling to address the political crisis. Also, South Korea's acting president Han Duck-soo had a phone call with US President Joe Biden. During the call, President Biden reiterated United States' commitment to the US-South Korea alliance, stating that it remains ironclad and unchanged. Biden added that the U.S. will work with South Korea to further develop and strengthen the alliance as well as trilateral cooperation among South Korea, Japan and the United States. Prime Minister Han became South Korea's assumed acting president following Yoon Suk-yeol's impeachment on Saturday. Meanwhile, South Korea's opposition leader urged a top court on Sunday to swiftly formalize the impeachment of President Yoon Suk-yeol and ease the suffering of the people after his short-lived martial law decree. And with South Korea's parliament voting successfully to impeach President Yoon Suk-yeol, Yoon's presidential powers and duties stand suspended. However, the impeached president vows to fight on as matter now goes to Constitutional Court for review. It is up to 180 days to determine whether to dismiss Yoon as president or restore his powers. Fuzail Ahmed reports for more. South Korean lawmakers on Saturday voted to remove President Yoon Suk-yeol from office for his failed attempt to impose martial law on December 3rd. Out of 300 lawmakers, 204 voted to impeach the president on allegations of insurrection, while 85 voted against. 3 abstained, with 8 votes nullified.
I would like to announce the results of the vote. The motion to impeach President Yoon Suk-yeol received 204 votes in favor and 85 votes against, out of a total of 300 votes cast. With 3 abstentions and 8 invalid votes, I declare it passed.
After the impeachment, South Korean President Yoon will remain in office, but his presidential powers will remain suspended. However, Yoon vowed not to give up.
I will never give up. I will do my best for the country until the last minute, taking reprimand, encouragement and support for me in mind.
So what happens next? The impeachment process moves to the Constitutional Court, where justices will review the case to determine whether Yoon's removal is justified. The court now has up to 180 days to determine whether to dismiss Yoon as the president or restore his powers. If the court upholds the impeachment, Yoon will be removed from office. If he is thrown out of office, a national election to choose his successor must be held within 60 days. If convicted, the leader could face death penalty or life imprisonment. Yoon earlier exercised the presidential privilege of immunity from criminal prosecution. However, that does not extend to allegations of rebellion or treason. Under the Constitution, Prime Minister Han Duck-soo, who was appointed by Yoon, becomes acting president following impeachment.
I will give all my strength and efforts to run this state administration stable during this difficult time.
So who is Prime Minister Han Duck-soo? Han Duck-soo was appointed as Prime Minister after Yoon was elected in 2022. Han has expertise in economy, trade and public affairs and was Prime Minister during the Roh Moo-hyun administration from April 2007 to February 2008. He spent more than 40 years in the public sector, including the Customs Agency, Trade Ministry and Finance Ministry. He also served as an ambassador to the United States. The vote took place as hundreds of thousands took to the streets of Seoul in rival rallies for and against Yoon, who launched a failed attempt to impose martial law on December 3rd. Many celebrated while Yoon supporters termed it unfortunate. It was the second attempt to impeach Yoon after the first vote was boycotted by his conservative People Power Party. The impeachment came following his short-lived attempt to impose martial law on December 3rd. His move had shocked the nation and split his party. Fuzail Ahmed reporting for DD India. And moving on, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese announced on Sunday that 5 members of the Bali 9 drug smuggling ring have been repatriated from Indonesia. The transfer follows diplomatic negotiations between the two nations earlier this month aimed at finalizing the agreement.
I'm pleased to confirm that Australian citizens Matthew Norman, Scott Rush, Martin Stevens, C.E. Chen and Michael Shugai have returned to Australia this afternoon. I want to express my gratitude to President Prabowo for Indonesia's cooperation and commitment to working with Australia on this matter. These Australians served more than 19 years in prison in Indonesia. It was time for them to come home.
Well, the UAE concluded its participation in the 16th session of COP16 to the United Nations Convention to combat desertification by emphasizing the importance of strengthening international cooperation to develop practical solutions for halting desertification and addressing drought. The UAE also underlined the importance of the active involvement of all community groups with a focus on enhancing the role of women in global sustainable land management. COP16 was held in Riyadh from December 2nd to 13th under the theme Our Land, Our Future. The conference aimed to explore strategies for transforming land degradation into renewal. The United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification serves as the global advocate for bringing together governments, businesses and civil society to address challenges and collaboratively shape a sustainable future for land. And back home, India's Vice President Jagdeep Dhankhar today inaugurated the GSI Geoscience Museum at the Victoria Market Building in Gwalior in the state of Madhya Pradesh. Housed in the historic Victoria Market Building, the state-of-the-art museum is set to become a hub for geoscience education and public engagement. The GSI Geoscience Museum represents a unique initiative by the Geological Survey of India to showcase the wonders of earth sciences, while promoting scientific temperament and knowledge sharing among the public. Vice President Jagdeep Dhankhar also presided over the unveiling of the statue of Maharaja Srimant Jivaji Rao Scindia Ji at Jivaji University in Gwalior, Madhya Pradesh. Speaking on the occasion, Vice President Dhankhar stated that the unveiling of the statue of Srimant Jivaji Rao Scindia underscores his enduring legacy and contributions to the development.
जो मूर्ति का अनावरण किया है उन महानुभाव ने आज़ादी के बाद राष्ट्रीयता को नई गति देते हुए became one of the first to integrate with Bharat and along with several others in this area. That was his vision. The historic event of unveiling his statue will ever be etched in my memory.
And moving on, India's Home Minister Amit Shah today presented the prestigious President's Colour to Chhattisgarh Police in Raipur. The Chhattisgarh Police has been honoured with the prestigious President's Police Colour Award, recognising their remarkable 25-year journey of selfless service and unwavering dedication to the nation. This esteemed award acknowledges the police force's fearless battle against Naxalism and their tireless efforts to maintain law and order in the state. Addressing the event, the Home Minister said that the Chhattisgarh Police is carrying out the anti-Naxal campaign with full bravery and dedication to fulfill the resolve of the central government to make Chhattisgarh Naxal-free before 31st March 2026.
राष्ट्रपति कलर सिर्फ एक अलंकरण नहीं है, ये सेवा, त्याग और बलिदान का प्रतीक है। यह उन अनगिनत चुनौतियों की याद दिलाता है जिनके साथ आपको दो दो हाथ करना है। ये अलंकरण के साथ साथ एक दायित्व भी है और मुझे विश्वास है कि छत्तीसगढ़ पुलिस के हर जवान इस दायित्व को सुपेरे निभाएगा और अपनी फर्ज में कभी भी एक टसू भी पीछे नहीं हटेगा।
Well, India's Parliamentary Affairs Minister Kiren Rijiju on Sunday responded to Congress MP Rahul Gandhi's remarks on Prime Minister Narendra Modi's speech in the Parliament's lower house of Lok Sabha.
Prime Minister of India is not for one party. Prime Minister is for the country, and Prime Minister's vision is for the country. So I urge all the opposition members to understand the spirit of Prime Minister's message and join the campaign. And 11 mantras which Prime Minister has stated in the floor of the House is to make India fully a developed nation by 2047.
Well, following a resounding victory in the Maharashtra Assembly elections, the swearing-in ceremony of the Mayotte cabinet is taking place in Nagpur today. A total of 40 MLAs of the Grand Alliance are likely to take oath as ministers in the cabinet expansion. Sources say the 21 MLAs from BJP, 12 from Shiv Sena and 10 from NCP will be given ministerial posts. The cabinet expansion taking place 10 days after Devendra Fadnavis took oath as Chief Minister, while Eknath Shinde and Ajit Pawar took oath as Deputy Chief Ministers. And today is the death anniversary of Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, the Iron Man of India. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi paid tributes to Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel on his death anniversary today. In a social media post on X, Prime Minister said, and I quote, "Salute to the Iron Man of the country, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, on his death anniversary. His personality and work will continue to be an inspiration for the citizens, for the unity and integrity of the nation and the achievement of the resolution of a developed India." Also, India's Home Minister Amit Shah in a social media post on X remembered Sardar Patel, saying, and I quote, "I remember and pay my tribute to the symbol of India's unity, Iron Man Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, on his death anniversary. Sardar Patel laid the foundation stone for the creation of modern India by integrating more than 550 princely states. His dedication towards national unity and integrity laid a strong foundation for Ek Bharat, Shresth Bharat. Sardar Sahib's great personality and resolve to build the nation will forever remain a guide, like the pole star, for those who give priority to national interest." And now let's take a look at other stories making news today. Former Naxals who surrendered and joined the mainstream were welcomed at the Bastar Academy of Dance, Art and Literature in the central Indian state of Chhattisgarh. Many have been inducted into the state police. The Aam Aadmi Party released its fourth list of 38 candidates for the 2025 Delhi elections. Arvind Kejriwal will contest from New Delhi opposite Sandeep Dixit, while Chief Minister Atishi will contest from Kalkaji constituency. Other key candidates include Saurabh Bharadwaj, Gopal Rai and Satyendra Kumar Jain. The elections are scheduled for next year. The three-day World Hindu Economic Forum concluded in Mumbai on Sunday. The Chief Ministers of Gujarat, Bhupendra Rajnikant Patel, also attended the event, spoke about the state's emerging role as a semiconductor hub. Well, you're watching DD India NewsHour. Time now for some sports news. Steve Smith and Travis Head smashed centuries as Australia posted a commanding 405 for loss of 7 wickets on day 2 of the third test against India in Brisbane. Smith notched up a hard-earned 101 while Head marched on to a swashbuckling 152 at the Gabba. The duo battled throughout the entire middle session, unraveling India's hard work in the morning. It took Jasprit Bumrah to salvage something from a tough day for India. The pacer took 3 wickets after tea to finish the day with his 12th 5-wicket haul. Pacer Akash Deep and spinner Ravindra Jadeja were wicketless. Alex Carey was unbeaten on 45 and Mitchell Starc was on 7 at stumps. The 5-match series is tied at 1-1. And for more, we have Narayan joining us on this. Well, Narayan, Australia is dominating on day 2 of the test match against India. Where do you see India standing currently?
Currently, Australia is in cruise control in this match. The way they batted, especially Travis Head and Steve Smith, and in the morning we saw the way Bumrah gave some early breakthrough to India, but after that they couldn't capitalize the conditions and they were wicketless for a long time. And in the meantime, the way Travis said, we know that he is becoming a regular headache for the Indian team, because in the past also when the World Cup, the previous ODI World Cup, where he scored 100 in the final against India and took away the match from the Indians, and also in the World Test Championship final, there too also he scored 100, and the previous pink ball test match in Adelaide too, he scored a fantastic knock of 140 runs. And I think here it's looked like that India is not able to plan a better plan against him, giving too much space, giving too much room to Travis Head here. Otherwise we can say that India lost that momentum, and if they would have taken Travis Head earlier, definitely they couldn't have scored such a big, we can say the big score here at the Brisbane Test match. So all in all, they need to find the way to how to tackle the Travis Head. And meanwhile, the way Steve Smith batted, he was out of the form, and the way he also found his lost mojo. So it was, we can say, double delight for the Australian team. There too, especially the Steve Smith coming back to the form, and Travis Head continuing the good work for the Australia against India. So all in all, we can say that is the time for the India to choke out a better plan for the Travis Head, so that in the remainder of the series he can be controlled.
All right, Narayan, thank you so much for all that details. And India beat Pakistan by 9 wickets in the Group A match of the Under-19 T20 Women's Asia Cup in Kuala Lumpur on Sunday. Opting to bat first, Pakistan managed to score 67 for 7 in 20 overs with wicket-keeper batter Komal Khan top scoring with a 32-ball 24, hitting 4 boundaries. In turn, India achieved the target in 7.5 overs, losing 1 wicket in the process. Left-hand batter G. Kamilini top scored for the side, returning undefeated on 44 of 29 balls, which included 4 fours and 3 sixes. And India's Minister of Youth Affairs and Sports, Dr. Mansukh Mandavia, will flag off the Fit India Cycling Tuesdays initiative in New Delhi on Tuesday. A key program of the Fit India movement, the cycling event is aimed at promoting a healthier and greener India. Its objective is to create awareness towards improving the air quality index in the national capital. The initiative will spread to over 1,000 locations on December 17th. It will be continued in the form of cycling events taking place every Tuesday across the nation following the launch. The Tuesday's event will witness elite athletes, fitness influencers and important figures besides the general public take part in the 3-kilometer cycling joyride. And Kane Williamson scored a half-century as New Zealand took charge on the second day of the third test against England in Hamilton. They dismissed England for 143 and made 136 for 3 at the close of play on Sunday for an overall lead of 340 runs. England have already secured series after big wins in the first 2 tests, but were on the back foot from the very start of a hot day. New Zealand are desperate for a consolidation victory for Tim Southee, who will retire after the match. And in hockey, India is set to clash with China in the finals of the Women's Junior Asia Cup in Muscat on Sunday. India defeated Japan 3-1 in the semi-finals and hopes to carry the momentum in the final as they seek to defend their title. India's Deepika Kumari is top scorer with 12 goals. In other semi-final, China thrashed last edition's runner-up South Korea 4-1. China will be high in confidence as they remain unbeaten in the tournament and have edged past their opponent in the league match. And the annual Santa Skate assembles at Hyde Park Corner before skating through London's West End. The hugely popular event has been running for 20 years with up to 500 Santas spreading the festive joy as they cruise through the London streets. And India's public broadcaster Prasar Bharati has recently launched Waves, entering the field of OTT platform. Waves provide a complete infotainment ecosystem to digital media and OTT audiences. If you also want great content for free, then download Waves today. All right, that's all in this edition of DD India. Keep watching for more.